beautiful day. Why don't you come with me to this pop-up?
Whoa, big guy. Gotta stop you right there, bro. Got my music playing. It don't get much more better than this on a Friday, bro. Sorry, I ain't gonna mess that up. I'm gonna keep practicing my dance moves.
Let me know.
All right, then.
Bro, you trying to hit up this pop-up? What you on today, man?
Yeah, gotta stop you right there, bro. Gotta stop you right there. It's Saturday. It's brainstorming time. I'm in the think tank. Can't mess up the ideas. Ain't nothing out there for me, man. Appreciate you, though. All right, then. Yo, bro, where you get those from, man? Where you get those from?
Oh, these right here, man. I got these at the pop-up shoe store down the street, man. But it's too late, man. They left.
Man, damn. All right, well, let's at least go get some chicken from my favorite spot, man. You know I gotta have it.
You know, we have a lot of expressions in the English language.
I don't even know what I'm saying.
What are we talking about?
Where'd that come from?
Most all of us use them every day.
I don't even know what that means. No one knows what it means.
You know, we just say them as if they really made sense.
I mean, how silly is that?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
What the f*** is he talking about?
Okay. What up? What's good? It's me, Mario, and welcome to the Appraise, the phrase show, origins of everyday expressions, where we're here to do three things: unveil the origin, confirm the meaning, and assess the value of common everyday phrases. Season 3 rolling in. Very excited about it. You know who I gotta introduce. Always with me, always holding it down. We took a little break, but our friendship never breaks. My guy 20 in the building. What's good, bro?
Oh, what's good, man? Everybody's good out there. Hope everybody's great. I'm excited. Can't wait to get this started.
Man, cannot wait to get this started up. Like I said, been taking a little break. Got episode 1 in the books. And now, you know, as we grow and mature, I hope that growth and maturity shows in the show. I mean, me as a man. I don't know where you at, 20, as a man, but I'm trying to get a little, you know, bills is catching up. Everything, manhood is defined for me now.
Yeah. You know how it is with me, man. I think more the fatherhood be more hitting me than anything else, man. You know what I'm saying? But it's a blessing, dude. It's super blessing. So I'm grateful for it. And you know what I learned? I learned to say it mature.
I see.
You know what I'm saying? I took out the CH and I put it more mature. So that's how old I am.
I got probably 2 more months.
You got like a couple. You got a couple more for you.
And then I got knock that out of there. You feel me?
You gotta take that shot.
Yeah. I will. I promise I will. But thank you. That's why you're my comrade. Hopefully that was adult enough. Now we got our first guest of season 3 in the building with us. I'm not gonna waste no time. Now, if you watch season 2, this is not time wasted. This is rolling out, y'all. If you watch season 2, you know what I'm big on. You see it on my hat. I talk about it all the time. Detroit native. And of course, I know. You every show you said you was in Miami and you didn't say it.
But you know what though, Mario, this season I'm trying something new. I feel like I'm not going to let you out hat me this season. So I'm going to try my best to keep up with the hats. You see, I got the Miami, I see the football club hat on, you know what I'm saying, representing down here. So, you know, I'm going to try to keep up with the hats this year.
There you go. That's all I can ask for you because I didn't ask anything. So to make sure that since he's leveling up his hat game, I decided that the first guest of season 3 has to be a Detroit native. So I'm rolling out the red carpet for my guy, senior front page editor of HuffPost, Phil. You probably know him. If you don't know him, you know of him. You've seen his name pop up. You've seen his picture. You've seen something he posted. Phil, what's good, brother?
Hey, appreciate both of y'all. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be on the call with y'all.
Hey, man, listen up. Everybody happy. Stand. There we go. Phil is here.
Phil is here. I feel last year they were just clapping for us. This year they screaming for us.
Okay. Now, bro. Yeah. When I told them who was coming, they booked. All the seats got booked, man. So Phil, before we get into the episode, man, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you feeling.
Yeah. So Feeling good. I'm glad to be here with y'all. So pretty much what I do is I'm really a breaking news and trending news editor. So I work with a team of reporters, and I assign them stories of things that are happening, whether it's breaking or whether it's trending news that we're talking about, and we, I edit them, usually copy edit, and we publish them, and we get those stories out. So one thing that I try to do is I try to find stories that people might not necessarily know about. That's one thing that's important to me. So stories that are generally sometimes focused on like marginalized communities, underrepresented communities. I try to find those stories and I try to uplift them so people can kind of get eyes on them and know what's going on. And so a lot of people, they'll come and tell me like, hey, I found out about this story from your Twitter or your newsletter or whatever. And that's something that's important to me because in the media, journalism in general has just been honestly filled with just white folk.
Hey, speak freely, brother.
It's been a white man's journal for a long time, right? And so it's important that we get our stories out there.
Heard that.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you a question real quick, Phil, not to take up too much, but is this something that you always wanted to do, or is this like something that you just was like, man, I'm good at this, let me go ahead and continue it? Or you knew from the jump, like, look, I want to get into journalism. I want to be able to, tell my story on a high platform.
Yeah. So really good question. I actually did not, man. I kind of randomly fell into this. I used to teach, actually. A friend of mine was like, hey, you're really good at the social media stuff. And this was around the time of, Vine was big. Other sort of like people were, especially in particular, Black folk were starting to figure out how to monetize kind of our presence online. This was like 2013, 2014. People were trying to figure out what to do. And so a friend of mine was like, hey, you should need to use this platform because right now you're just like a teacher with like 30,000 Twitter followers. Like that's, you should do something with that, because people were following me at the time because I was just finding stories and just sharing them. And that's what I was using Twitter for. And I was using Twitter in a way that was still kind of different. It was still kind of new. Like a lot of people were using social media to, to just whether talk or, promote parties or whatever. But I would say 2011, 2012, 2013, where you had obviously Trayvon Martin was his murder was promoted heavily on social media, right? People found out about it through social media. Mike Brown, a lot of the people who were killed. People find out about these through social media, and so I was using sort of my platform even before I became a journalist to make people aware of what was going on. And so it was just a transition. It was I'm not gonna say it was an easy transition because I had to learn how to be a journalist. I didn't go to journalism school, but the internship that I had with HuffPost back in 2015 taught me how to be a journalist, and I've just kind of stayed in it ever since then.
That's dope, man.
That is very dope, man, and so dope because it's like it's kindred on what we're doing. Like we didn't set out we didn't set out to be hosts of a podcast. We didn't set out to have a podcast or show, I like to call it now, because of the connotation of podcast, and I'm all about essence. That's how it was born, and really just pivoting towards voice, mission, do something about it, man. So very, very dope that you used a platform, and you said something very important is I had to know what journalism was. And you got to know, right? You got to figure out the thing, or you're kind of doing a version of the thing. So I rock with that. Exactly. Very heavy, man.
Oh, yeah, I definitely rock with that too as well, man. Because sometimes when you, like you say, you didn't go to journalism school, but sometimes, man, Mario knows about me. I'm more of an life experience guy. You get what I'm saying? And I feel like sometimes when you go that route as other people go, you get left behind for those people. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like when you do it and take it upon yourself and take the initiative yourself, you open those doors. You don't have to wait for somebody else or have that mentality of somebody else need to open it up the door for me because I'm only in journalism school or I'm only going to school for communication. So this person should be able to open the door. But when you're doing things on your own, man, you open those doors by yourself and realize they ain't as locked as you thought they were. You feel me?
Man. Said it. So
we out here this year. Mario. We out here this
Hey,
shit.
I see it, man. I see it. I told you that maturity. That
Yeah,
maturity.
It's gonna get a couple minutes. I thought it was gonna take a couple weeks. It's gonna take a couple
Hey,
minutes.
I had to, learning fast is part of that grown man.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
So let's get into the phrase, man. Let's get into the phrase today, because you hear what Phil talking about. Very thoughtful person, very intentional person, and you know it. You know we love when the guest has a phrase that they're bringing to the table. That's like, look, I want to dig deeper in something that I've heard or I experienced or I just want to know. So today we gonna talk about a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Now I'm gonna pop us off because I got something to say about that. So I was doing the research on this. I've heard this in passing. It's for me, it's a coming and going phrase. But then once I was doing the research, and I'm like, okay, this is definitely one of those like life experience, how people live life phrases. And season 3 is going to be a time for me to disagree with a lot of things. And I think this is the first phrase that I actually disagree with, because I don't know if, as we'll get into the meaning, but a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So with that said, that's my opinion on that.
And that's all I have to say about that.
All right, my got 20. A bird in the hand.
I'm sorry.
I told you, did you want to talk about it? But you didn't. But you didn't.
The Forrest Gump, though. Okay, go
That's
ahead.
my
Go
dog.
ahead.
No, you up. What's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on a bird in the hand, two in the bush before we get into this meaning?
I'd be totally honest with you, man. I never really heard of it. I don't know what type of phrase it is, so I'm interested too as well, because it seemed like it's going to make sense. But once you're saying that you're already for the debunking of it, I'm like, I might have to sit back and just listen to this one, because like I'm not too familiar with it. But you know, like what we're doing, man. I'm a seeker of knowledge, so I can't wait to like actually sit down and hear both of y'all take, and then take my own take out of it.
Oh, perfect.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Bro, you can't.
Every time. All right, Phil, before we get into the meaning, tell me a little bit about why you brought this phrase and what your thoughts on a bird in the hand worth two in the bush.
Yeah, so the reason why I chose that phrase in particular is because it was one that I used to live my life sort of by that way quite a bit. I was very much so, whether it was college, when I was in college, I was a resident assistant. I was involved in the Black Student Alliance. I was involved in a lot of different sort of different things on campus. And I was like, look, when I get to college, I want to do everything by the book as much as I possibly could. And so honestly, the biggest risk I ever took was taking that internship with HuffPost in 2015, because I had never really lived outside of Michigan at that point. I was leaving everything I knew in Michigan to take an internship in DC that paid about $15 an hour. And, you know, and if you are familiar with DC, you know how much DC is.
Yeah, I am now.
Right? You're in VA.
Yep.
So, I packed up my car. I drove from Michigan to DC. I stayed with a friend who allowed me to live in her closet. Basically, it was like a little side room. But it was basically the biggest risk that I ever took for a position that wasn't really. It had a deadline, it had a expiration date. The internship was going to end in like 3 or 4 months or 5 months or something like that, and then from there it was just up in the air.
Yeah, figure it out.
So the reason why I chose that phrase is because honestly, everything that I've been able to do in my life stemmed from that one decision of moving, just blowing everything up, saying I'm going to take a risk, a massive risk. You know, it totally, taking that internship totally changed my life. Like we wouldn't be talking. I'd still be probably in Detroit figuring out how to teach or whatever I was doing.
Right.
You know, and it totally. So in a way, I sort of disagree with the phrase myself, but it's one that I think I had to kind of figure out how to, step away from it, because I lived my life pretty safe up until that point, as far as like, I'm not going to make a decision unless I know I can see what's going to happen. I want to be able to see the finish line. What am I going to get out of this?
Yeah.
The internship, I had no idea if I was going to be able to work in journalism. I had no experience in this field. And so, just taking that risk, I couldn't see the two birds.
Yeah.
You can't see the two birds, in the bush, right? And so sometimes you have to take a risk in order to get that sort of reward.
That's real. All right.
Okay.
All right. I don't know, 20. I don't know if what Phil said helps you lean into it, but let's actually get into the meaning of a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And so this season, as things are going on, we actually had misinformation cleared up about Webster's and what that actually means to have a Webster's definition. For lack of fully explaining, right. Any published web definition is considered Webster's. Webster's is not a brand. So we're now going to use two definitions to figure out and kind of get close and hone in on the meaning. So first we'll go with Merriam-Webster. So Merriam is the one we're listening to. And that definition is, it is better to hold onto something one has than to risk losing it by trying to get something better. Again, Merriam-Webster says a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush means it is better to hold on to something one has than to risk losing it by trying to get something better. Now, dictionary.com, and we are in a digital world, y'all, so this is it, right? Dictionary.com has something slightly different. They say the definition of a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush is the things we already have are more valuable than the things we only hope to get. Okay?
Ooh, that sounds like more black. I don't know why that last one sounded a little more smoother. Maybe it was how you said it. Mario. That's because you always shitted on the brand Webster. So maybe that's how you said it. But that last one sounded like had a little cognac with it.
Yeah, I'm saying I don't know who's printing what, but dictionary.com, and they saying it a little bit more. I don't know. I'm going. Yeah.
I was interpreting how they said it. Like that's how when you look at a text, like, oh, this nigga's yelling at me through this text.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know, bro?
How you type this up? So that's what I want to get. I want to get your thoughts, man. Go ahead, 20. You go ahead and pop us off. What's your thoughts on the two definitions with the phrase, and where does that take you to start this journey?
Man, you know what? Let me start off with just saying this. Like, I feel like I should have had this phrase a part of my life way before this. You get what I mean? Because that's a statement that I feel like if you go by definition, that's a statement that everybody uses. You know what I mean? That's kind of like saying, oh, the grass isn't greener. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if I can get close to that with my experiences, I would say maybe that's them saying the grass is not greener on both sides, on the other side of the fence type of deal. But yeah, man, normal when people have that comfort zone, they want to stay in that comfort zone instead of going out of it and realizing that, man, that's not the ceiling, that's the floor. You get what I mean? Like when it's a situation where, yeah, man, damn, last year I was making, this is monetizing. Last year I was making 20 grand. Oh yeah, I have an opportunity to maybe make a little bit more, but man, I got the schedule that I want. The people that I work with is cool. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't really have to stress. They let me come in late and not trip. You get what I'm saying? Those things right there can keep you from getting to maybe that next level at what you need to get to in life. And, Phil's story helped me out too as well when it comes to those things, because we all feel that way, especially when we know, like, we got to the end of this job, like there's nothing else I can give this company, or nothing else I can give this place of employment now. But yet,
It's comfortable.
I don't want to start over. Man. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to start. Yeah. I feel like that's where it's going to, more than not saying that I can't catch these two birds in the bush, but it's just like, man, do I really want to let this one bird go for the opportunity to catch two? You know what I mean? And that's where a lot of people kind of miss out because they're going towards that comfort instead of saying, you know what, I caught this one bird, I can catch another bird. Even if I catch one, let me go for the option of catching two. You get what I mean? So
Heard you. That's solid, man. That's solid. That's a great take for being introduced to the phrase. Phil, tossing it to you. Anything you caught between the two, the differences, subtle differences between the two definitions, and I'm happy to restate them if you want.
Yeah, let's hear them one more time.
All right, here we go. So Merriam-Webster's, who is now, I don't know if they're in opposition of the show, but we'll keep bringing them.
Oh, they're definitely going to be ops.
It is better to It is better to hold on to something one has than to risk losing it by trying to get something better. Where dictionary.com says the things we already have are more valuable than the things we only hope to get. What's your take on the subtle differences? Yeah,
so I think there's actually a really big difference between one and the other. So the first definition, it tries to give you the actual definition, like just straight up without any. It seems like the second definition puts some of its own judgment into it, because who's to say? Who's to say which one I value more, right? Like there's some people who don't necessarily like to take risks, and they're like, look, even though I know that this might be something better, I might be comfortable wherever I'm at, right? And so It seems to me that the second one doesn't really seem to be a definition, more so, and so it's more like its own judgment, or it's passing its own value onto the phrase. That's what it seems like. The first one is just, here's what it is, here's what it means. The second one is like, this is actually more valuable, right? And my thing is, who's to say it's more valuable, right? Like that's a decision that we all have to make, in our lives. Like something doesn't necessarily mean it's more valuable. The number two might not necessarily be more valuable than one bird, right? Like, okay, I have birds. Is it more valuable? It depends on your perspective, right? So, I would say that's actually a pretty key difference between the two definitions.
I'm with you.
I'm with you too,
man. And it's like for the second one, it's almost the point of the show, which is like, oh, like the essence is changing. The essence is changing. Where the homie Merriam, they just, like you said, flat out, this is what it is, and this is what the phrase is to mean. Up to you what you do with it, how you execute it. Whereas the other one is, if you try, you blew it, because one is more valuable than the other. I'm with that.
Yeah. It's like Merriam is saying, my fault, Mario. It's like Merriam is saying you shouldn't do it, and dictionary.com is saying don't do it. You get what I'm saying? Like Merriam is giving you that, hey man, you shouldn't value the one, you know what I'm saying? And then Merriam's like, bro, you got something in your hand already. Don't let it go for a two. You get what I mean? It's being like he said, it's being a little bit more judgmental.
Absolutely, super judgy. All right, hold on to those thoughts because it actually matters. All right, let's jump into the origin.
Where'd that come from?
Oh man. Yeah, I like this one, man.
Yeah. So, a bird in the hand, we're two in the bush. We're gonna go all the way back to 6th and 5th century BCE. So before they put my man, if you're a believer, before they put my man on the cross, 6th, 5th century, it comes from the Proverbs of Ahkbar, where the original version of this, the original iteration is, a sparrow in thy hand is better than 1,000 sparrows flying. So I'm taking from that, like, okay, you caught one, but you like see 1,000 of them. You're like, man, how many can I get? So that's where from the Proverbs of Ahkbar. Now let me get into Ahkbar before we like crown why it would even matter to listen to a Proverbs from this person. So the story comes from Imperial Aramaic, so a very, very distant language. Like Aramaic is almost like the step before Hebrew in a sense. They're not directly, but like some would say Aramaic is hard to translate even today. And it was from Egypt, and it circulated the Middle East and Near East. And the main character, Ahkbar, is actually a loose No, he's fine. Loosely based on an Assyrian king in 2 towns that I cannot pronounce, but they're Egyptian towns. Trust me on that. Feel free to look it up. And so, having no child of his own, he adopted his nephew, and he raised him. This is Ahkbar, and he raised him to be his successor. And the nephew, didn't care really. He was ungrateful about the naming of the successor. So he basically plotted to have Ahkbar's brother, his uncle, killed, and that persuaded the whole city that Ahkbar was king over that Ahkbar did it and committed treason. Like, you don't do that. So everybody was like, okay, Ahkbar, you got to die. You got to die. So Ahkbar is arrested and imprisoned, and as he's waiting his punishment, waiting to get killed, he reminds the executioner that he had saved him when he was, as he was the king. He had admonished him of some wrongdoing from a similar instance where he had, accidentally killed a prisoner. So what they end up doing is eye for an eye type of thing where, okay, I helped you out, you helped me out, so we're going to kill somebody else instead, and we're going to keep Ahkbar alive. Okay, so that's where that comes from. And the remainder of the story is kind of like, doesn't even really, it's hard to translate, hard to like some say it doesn't even exist. Like, it's hard to translate because it's all historically rubbled up. But based on that story and Ahkbar having this experience, he wrote down these proverbs, like why he was down bad and why he was king and all this stuff. So I'm going to read off a couple of lines to get to that sparrow in thy hand is better than 1,000 sparrows flying. So he says, "O my son, the man who hath no rest, his death were better than his life. And the sound of weeping is better than the sound of singing. For sorrow and weeping, if the fear of God be in them, are better than the sound of singing and rejoicing. O my child, the thigh of a frog in thy hand is better than a goose in the pot of thy neighbor. And a sheep near these is better than an ox far away. And a sparrow in thy hand is better than 1,000 sparrows flying. And poverty, which gathers, is better than the scattering of much provision." So he's basically like, yo, to my not child, but who I treat as a child nephew, these are all the things I want you to understand about life now that I'm down bad. So he was trying to give him all these principles that he learned. Okay, so that's where kind of the essence of the phrase started. And it wasn't really connected to how Ahkbar got down bad, but he wanted to give what he had to his nephew, who he didn't even realize framed him. So
wow,
yeah. So now we got that out. Just beginning of where it comes from. Sparrow in thy hand is better than 1,000 sparrows flying. Phil, what's your thoughts on the original phrase?
So I think the original phrase actually makes more
sense.
Because it's telling you that, look, you have a bird already in your hand, in your possession. There are thousands of sparrows, flying above your head. What if you can't catch one? Catch another one. You have a bird. You should be. I think it teaches you more about being grateful, right? Which is different from how we kind of use the phrase now. It's evolved in sort of a different way, because when I think about it, those honestly the phrases are like, those are 2 separate phrases almost, because one phrase is more about, it seems to be more about being grateful. And then the second phrase, the phrase that we now know today, is more like, maybe more about cautious. Like, you should be cautious about what you're doing. So they're 2 almost separate phrases. And I'd be curious. I mean, there's no way to like go back and find out, how this guy from a billion years ago feels about it. But these are two very separate phrases that have different meanings, I think, at this point.
Absolutely. 20, where you at?
Yeah, I feel like all the meanings that you gave Mario changes the phrase. You get what I'm saying? Like, even though they're to the naked eye, I would say all of them sound alike. But once you start to, put more into words, like put more into the actual words that you're saying, then you see that like all of them are different. All of them make the phrase a different phrase. Like you said, now it's more of a caution. Before, it's more of appreciation. You get what I mean? And it's like when you're hearing that, like when you add on like the sheep right here is better than rice and bar and all that. You know what I mean? It's like you can kind of get behind it a little bit more, especially when you're talking about eating, bro. You get what I'm saying? Like, bro, that's like your parents when it's like, oh, you hungry? Yeah, okay, I got this in there. No, I want McDonald's. Well, you ain't hungry then. You get what I'm saying? Like,
no, man, like the one I like, bro. I like the thigh of a frog in your hand is better than the goose in the pot of thy neighbor. Like, yo, I know the frog. Because think about like the frog's thigh is mad thin, like mad little thigh. Like if that's what you nibbling on, it's still better to have that than looking upon your neighbor's fat goose in the pot. Like, yes, in theory, you would rather, right? Of course. But the one in your hand is the one you got, brother. So, yeah, that's more like gratitude as opposed to risk aversion, which is where
you can even go further and say that's more with envy. You get what I'm saying? Like, you shouldn't be envious of your neighbor, or you shouldn't be envious of other people's situations. So it's like, damn, like that's like the third dimension of this phrase. You know what I mean? We have gratitude, we have regret too as well. We have envious. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like things. Once you start really breaking it down, you start to like have different shades of this whole phrase, man. That's why I think it's a good phrase, but it giving you mixed signals. It's giving you mixed signals.
She in the corner like, do you wanna? She liked the song. She don't like the song. She liked the drink. I don't know. All right, let's move on to the second level of the journey, of our origin journey. So now we're jumping from Egypt, 6th and 5th century BCE to England, of course, right? Because it got to get to English somehow. It's actually, we're going to go into occupational stuff right now. So we're going into medieval falconry in the 15th century, okay? And we're going to reference The Life of St. Catherine. That was written by John Capgrave. And I didn't get into too much of John Capgrave because he's boring, okay? He is boring and inconsequential. And The Life of St. Catherine seems like a decent read. Go read it. I started to read and I'm like, yeah, no. So feel free. I could be wrong. But in that book, go ahead, 20, you guys. Just being honest here, man.
Honestly, to be honest with you, that's perfect, bro.
Yeah, man. It's like I could, and maybe in season 2 I would have to honor the person we're referencing. But I'm like, John, you got to come with a little more slaps. But you came with one, and it's a bird, which is a falcon. And he says a bird in the hand was more valuable than 2 in the bush. And this is, I think, where we start to transition, y'all, when it got translated into English, where the falcon. The bird is a falcon, and the 2 in the bush are considered the prey when we're talking about medieval falconry. So let me just get into the occupation a little bit so we can understand why someone like John Capgrave would have said this in the 15th century. So medieval falconry and hawking was taking the advantage of trained birds of prey who were like they found naturally in the wilderness. Okay, you hunt other birds, bet we're going to use you to our advantage to hunt small wild game such as squirrels and rabbits and other birds. So falconry became regulated. So like, yo, you doing your falconry a little too much. Government got to get our hands on that. Kind of like cannabis. We can call falconry and cannabis tomato, maybe. So falconry became regulated, revered, and a popular sport. And then it was a status symbol among the nobles and the clergy of medieval Europe. So like you're somebody if you're good at falconry. Yeah.
If you had a falcon, you was that dude.
You was that guy. Like if you walk around with a falcon or they knew you're falcon, like that's probably, I don't know if I'm thinking like maybe cartoons, maybe movies where the falcon have a little hood and the hood is like branded. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's like, oh, that's such and such falcon.
Walk around with their arm like this.
You feel me? You feel me? Like, hey, I'm eating free here, right? Like I get my meal for free.
Yeah. Definitely the falcon's eating for free. Definitely the falcon, bro. Definitely the falcon.
In some religious circles, in some religious orders, the falcons were taken into religious services. I don't know if that's without their owner. They're like, hey, the falcon can come, but you can't.
But you can't.
So falcons were highly valued, that they were worth more than their weight in gold. So this is where I think dictionary.com said, okay, what it sounds like is that this man, John Capgrave, in the life of St. Catherine. And, okay, let me a little bit of context. So the life of St. Catherine. St. Catherine is this woman who was supposed to be one of the sweetest, righteous people in the world. She went through persecution anyway, and she always came out on top. And so he just talked about how always wanting to, and she was like humble and meek, and how her meekness was always helping her be the next ascend to the next greatness in life. So basically like valuing the thing that you have or are, as opposed to valuing the other thing because she always beat it or whatever. So it was popular to talk about falconry in this way, especially in value. So that's where we are with medieval falconry and hawking. Before I go into our third level of our origin journey, fellas, 20, where you at with this profession in medieval falconry and how it stands in positions against the phrase?
This is another thing that changes the phrase for me too as well. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it, but it's like now that you put it like as falconry, it does make sense. It makes a lot of sense because that falcon is going to get you not just other small birds, but other small game and stuff like that, as opposed to you just going out and quail hunting yourself. You get what I'm saying? Like you know what I mean? It's and all you got to do is what you say, Phil, hold that arm up like this. Tell buddy, go get that for you, boy. Bring it back so we can split it. You feel me? As opposed to you going into the bush, making noise, shooting two birds. That might take all day, but the falcon, he'd be able to see it, fly over it, kill it, bring it back. Might take 20 minutes. So, yeah, you're right, man.
Ooh, I like that. I'm going to come back to that, too. I'm going to come back to what you said. Phil, what you got with that connection of falconry and the phrase? I like that, 20.
This is totally different.
Right, Phil? Look at you. Phil's like, damn, I brought up this long-ass phrase, man. Shit.
It's so interesting kind of hearing about like how people use phrases, and it shows a lot about language, and how language evolves, over time, and how how there are phrases that we think are one way, but then as society changes around us, because none of us are walking around with falcons.
Not no more, bro. Yeah.
So totally, the phrases, lingo, language, it all changes depending on the society that's around us. And even a bird in the hand that was worth two in the bush is still something that we still kind of at least can understand. This falconry is not something that is relevant in, obviously today's society or anything like that. Just words evolve, they change. And then also depending on where you are, like this guy's in England, there's Egypt, there's all these different places, that factors into how words and phrases change. So I don't know. I'm not walking around with the falcon, but I think
you should bring that back, Phil. You should bring that falcon, bring back that falconry, baby. You say everybody bringing back old songs. We should just bring back old birds and shit, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Have the sparrows, have it all. Bring it all, man. So it's just interesting because we understand what these words, what the phrases mean. They just change. They change, but we ultimately understand where they come from and where they originate.
Yeah, right. Exactly. One thing I want to bring up before we move on to this last leg is, so 20, you took the falconry thing as time. Like the falcon will save you more time on some hunting shit. Phil, you're like, man, the act that this stands on is gone, but the words remain. And I'm like, if you're the person with like a bunch of, because they say the falcons hunted a bunch of stuff. If say you had 15 rabbits, the man with the falcons is not going to trade his falcon for 15 rabbits. So it's just like different ways to even approach it in terms of like what is value and how value shifted over time and how we're looking at it. Like, it's not even like first it was gratitude, which has a value, but then it was just straight like transactional value, what you're going to get for it.
Right.
You feel me?
Right.
So
like I'm going to trade you my falcon for 2 dead birds. Or
I'm not going to do
it. Something like that. Because you get what I'm saying? Yeah. That I feel like that's where it's going. That's where it is in this moment.
In this moment. And it's like, it makes sense in where we at. Where we at in time. Now, the last little part before we get up out of here is how we got to his exact naming. Okay. So that came in 1670 in a handbook of Proverbs by John Ray. Okay. The bird in the hand was adopted from that book, which didn't find much on it. I could again, John Ray. These Johns, even though John was, we talked about this in season 2, John was a normal name. Okay,
I'm about to say,
John and Jack. John and Jack were yeah. Common name. Like, so yeah, these guys were just writing, right? Proverbs at that. So anyway, because of the popularity of this handbook, Bird in the Hand was adopted in a pub in England in the Middle Ages. And then that's how the name, like the actual phrase, just continued to survive. And it got passed on until some English migrants came to America and they took the expression bird in the hand, and they just took it with them and kept it alive in the families. And then by the time they got to America, by 1734, they founded a town in Pennsylvania called a Bird in the Hand. So there's a bird.
Wait, the name of the town?
Bird in the Hand, PA, has been a haven for travelers since colonial times, when they built the road between Philadelphia and Lancaster.
Wow, bro.
The Smucker family has carried on that tradition for generations. Today, they
those the people that make the peanut butter jelly.
Hey, man, look, the degrees of separation. So I'm loading up Bird in the Hand, Pennsylvania right now. Okay. Experience Bird in the Hand. I'm just looking at the site. So we got an Amish tour, and they got some stage shows in 2023. They got Easter goodies that we can order right now. This is all free marketing to them, by the way. They got a farm to fork experience on May 10th. If anybody wants to go to Bird in Hand, Pennsylvania. Right now on stage, they're playing Dear Soldier Boy.
Oh my gosh. What?
I don't know.
What city is this by? Is it by Pennsylvania or
is it by Bethel? This is a Bethel?
It better be. I'm going to look this up. I'm going to look up Bird in Hand.
It's probably in the middle of nowhere.
It's got to be, right?
I would have definitely got that question wrong if the jackpot was on the line.
Like, no, okay, very funny. Very funny.
Yeah.
There's no such place as this. There's
no way it can be B. We're going to go with C.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the closest place that I can name that anybody would know. I'm got to keep pressing the minus sign. Damn. If people know Lancaster, it's west of Philly, but Mechanicsburg, it splits Hershey, the famous Hershey.
So Harrisburg is probably the biggest city that's nearby. Yeah. Harrisburg probably.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's called
Bird in Hand, Pennsylvania, brother.
Wow. They really leaned in.
They said, you know what? Not even gonna.
You know what? Honestly, we're gonna put some dashes in there just in case a nigga want to turn that shit into one word.
Yeah. Like, this is ours. All right. We have made it, y'all. Hold on, one more time. We have made it. We have made it to how Bird in the Hand, or Two in the Bush. Sorry. Sit down, everybody. Has made it to the English vernacular, the states, that is. So we go from Egypt, 6th, 5th century before Christ. We get to 15th century England, and we start getting into the best sport there is, falconry. And then that sport was so big that the families moved to America, settled in Pennsylvania, not in Philly, but a little bit farther away. And they said, we got to name this town That Thing, because in an ironic turn, they actually left what they knew and named it Bird in Hand, which I think is hilarious, because they actually took a big risk by going to settle somewhere. All right, y'all. Let's grade this thing. Let's make sure we can assess what we need to assess. Let's appraise this phrase. So Phil, and all of our new season 3 listeners, and thank you to continued season 2 supporters. So we have a 3 part grading system, an A through F grading scale. So the first grade is the power grade, and that is the impact of the phrase, how it's said when you hear it. Does it like oomph you when you hear it? Does it freeze you? Then we got the speed grade, the eloquence. Does it flow off the tongue well? Even if it's longer or shorter, does it just like, can you say it quickly? And then we got our guest preference, which is all things considered. That's your grade field, where everything you brought into it, your preconceived notions, the meaning, the origin, all that, how you just feel right now about it after everything. So 20, I love your power thoughts typically. So we're going to have you pop us off A through F on the power grade.
When it comes to the power, man, I'm gonna give it a B.
Why?
I'm gonna give it a B. Oh, because you know me, man. I see how words can like captivate people, and I feel like this is something that you can use to control people. You get what I'm saying? And a lot, and be honest with you, by saying that to somebody who is scared of new experiences, you know, that'll give them a reason to stay in their comfort zone. You get what I'm saying? To say this to somebody who is always looking to the next person and compare themselves to the next person, it can be something that can be like, yo, look, you know, you shouldn't be comparing. You shouldn't be comparing. You get what I mean? It's one of those things that you can actually use it to direct someone.
Yeah.
And I feel like if that's the case, then that's something that is powerful, because not only did it stand since when, what you say, 16 BC or when was it? It was
6 BC, not that
6
far.
BC till now. You get what I mean? Like, it has to have that power in it for people to like hold on to it, even if they are going against it, or those people that love their comfort zone. That's something that they could put over themselves as a blanket.
Heard you. B it is.
Yeah.
All right. Speed grade. I'm gonna knock us out with the speed. I'm gonna give it a C, only because the two in the bush part, mainly the worth part, probably because Bird in Hand obviously slaps, town named after it. Two in the Hand, actually, I changed my mind as I was grading it, because Two in the Hand flow too. It's that bird in the bush. Well, man, I lost it. Bird in the Hand worth Two in the bush. Yeah, C plus. I just plussed it because I was able to do that. But you can't. One thing about it is that you can't shorten it without the other side to get it. So that's why, like, as far as its flow, you need the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's the problem of it.
You need the whole thing to make it solid. So I'm gonna give it a C plus as far as speed goes. Let me stamp that.
I feel like, Mario, that's the reason why I couldn't give it an A in power, because like it has to have the whole thing.
You need to.
You get what I'm saying?
You have to hear the whole thing.
You got to hear the whole thing.
Yeah. All right, Phil, your overall thoughts, man. A through F, everything considered.
Everything considered. I'm gonna give it a B. I'm gonna give it a B for longevity. It's lasted, you know, not
you
even
gotta
decades.
respect it. Yeah.
That longevity has of centuries. It's been around. Also, I mean, if you have a phrase named after a town, or a town named after a phrase, that's hard. Like that's hard. Like I don't know what to tell you. You have like a little town named after that's not just named after it, but also dedicated to like tour, like as guys like tourism surrounding its, you know, inviting people to come and, you know, check out the origins of this phrase. That's hard. Like that's worthy. And then also, I think the phrase, I mean, it ultimately, I think it just leaves, it's open to interpretation, right? So it's for people who are maybe less, you know, who are risk averse. They might be like, okay, you know what? I got my bird. I'm good, you know. But then for other people, you know, like myself, who maybe have lived by this phrase, you know, taking that one risk, you know, might change your life. So turning, that's why I can't, and that's actually why I can't give it the A, because it's like, well, you know, what if I totally ignore this phrase?
Yeah,
right.
You know, like I might be missing out on something. So that's why I can't get the A. But you know, it's a phrase that has longevity, and it's been around the block.
My guy, B it is. Now, as y'all know, because we just finished up episode 1, as y'all know, these grades matter. Don't sleep on the grades. These grades matter, because we got our season 3 tournament at the end of the season. So, yeah, appreciate you, Phil. Before we get out of here, I'm going to pass it to 20 for one of my favorite segments. I'm so glad to have it back. We got
we definitely. The Dictionary of Misinformation. Phil, man, this is something that I feel like when Mario brought this up to me, like it changed my life. It changed my life, man. Because I know you're a seeker of knowledge. I can tell by just the way we talk. And this is a situation where we found this book, and this book is just pretty much debunking all the information that we thought we knew in life. So what we're going to do, we're going to ask you to give us a letter and out the alphabet from A to Z. I
forget which one is not.
I think it's X. I think we get X already, so I don't know if X is still popping. So sorry for your pettiness. If you want to, if you was a petty person, Bill. So we don't have X anymore, but every letter other than X, we can definitely find some type of information starting with that letter that you probably most likely has been misinformed about.
Yeah.
So whatever letter you want to throw out, if you don't want to throw out a letter, we'll pick one for you. It's not no pressure.
I'll go with E.
E. All right. It's back, y'all. It's back. It's a real book, Phil. I promise.
It's a real book.
It's not me making things up.
Even though you can't do that, it can be blank pages. It can be blank pages, and you can just really make up some shit and be like, "Oh, you know what? Elephants aren't really mammals." You know, just shit like that. Some shit like that, bro.
Oh man. Hey. All right.
Oh yeah, let me do this too as well, Phil. Mario pre-reads them, gets a kick out of them. He gets a kick out of them. The suspense builds up the suspense and goes, "I'm gonna use another one. I'm gonna use another one."
I'm gonna do this one because episode 2. This is our first one of the season.
Okay,
so we might as well come out slapping. The Emancipation Proclamation. What don't we know? What are we wrong about the Emancipation Proclamation? Okay, so Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation had no legal force. It did not free any slaves and was not inspired by altruism, though this is not to say that Lincoln's dislike of slavery was any less genuine. That is also up for debate. Okay? It only applied to an enemy with which the United States was at war. Obviously, it could have no legal force any more than the proclamation by President Roosevelt ordering Hitler to free all the Jews. Needless to say, the proclamation was ignored by the Confederacy, and since it applied only to the Confederate States, the net effect was that no slave was freed. And motivation appears to have been almost entirely military political. In 1862, Lincoln told the South that any state which did not return to the Union by the end of the year would have its slave declared free men. No state accepted the offer, so on January 1st, the proclamation was issued. Its international impact was greater than its domestic significance, and by making it appear that the Civil War was a crusade against slavery, the proclamation made it less likely that England and France, as the South would hope and expected, joined forces with the Confederacy. Basically, the emancipation, it wasn't a bluff, but it was like the optics were like, all right, now you won't be strong enough to beat us. So it didn't force nothing legally, but it was like, hey, I got an 8. No, I got an ace right here. I got an ace. I don't know what this other card, I'm talking about blackjack. I got this other card right here. Do you really want to risk it? And the Confederates was like, no, because France and them, you know what I'm saying? So that's what the Emancipation was, proclamation. So if you're a Lincoln fan, that's what I have to say. Shrug if you're a Lincoln fan.
And normally we don't give them time to argue. So guys, we're gonna go ahead and close out the show.
Get out of here.
Don't tweet us. This is not us.
That is not
just let you know it wasn't nothing legal. It was just a bunch of dudes bullying people.
There was a little bit of a bully move, and it worked. All right, I gotta thank everybody. I gotta thank my man Phil. We're gonna make sure you can catch Phil and all his work. Please check out his newsletter. Check out the promo that Phil's gonna put out so that you can find all his stuff. Thank you to my guy 20. Any last words, bro? 20.
No, man. You know what it is, bro. Be good to yourself so you can be good to others, man.
You have to. Don't pour from an empty cup, glass, bowl, carafe, whatever. I gotta thank the Underdogs Podcast Network. We're brought to you by them. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube for the visuals. Thank you for all the writers, contributors, graphic folks for the show. We will see y'all next week. And remember that value is in the eye of the appraiser. Ciao.
Yeah, like.